Hey everyone, welcome to Cross Culture Critic. I'm Chris.
And I'm Joe.
Welcome to the show. How you doing, Joe?
I'm hanging in. How about you?
I'm good. It's spring as we're recording this.
First day of spring.
As we're recording this, it's the first day of spring. What I meant to say is the day this airs will be Good Friday.
Ooh.
So happy Easter, happy Good Friday.
Yes.
So do you do anything special for Easter? Or?
You know what? I have my daughters. I used to do the Easter baskets. And they're 13, almost 14, and 11 now. And so instead of Easter baskets, I get them like a little something. And then I get them a gift card to, there's a candy store by my house called Doc Sweets.
Yeah.
And I just say, build your own Easter basket.
Oh, nice.
So I give them a gift card, $20 or whatever on it. And they can just go up and get all the candy that they actually want instead of, spiced jelly beans and all that nonsense that you might not like.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with all that like green grass stuff.
Oh my gosh, the little paper grass.
Yeah, I don't like that stuff.
Yeah.
Got everywhere growing up. So I just like here you go. We go up there and they get candy bars, or they have a huge like gummy, like all like the gummy bears and stuff like that. But it's like beyond that. Like it's like gummy pizza kit and gummy, sushi kit. So they get all that stuff, and then they have like chocolate covered grasshoppers and scorpions and suckers.
Wow.
And they have every jelly belly you could think of and stuff like that. So they just go up and have a lot of fun with that.
That's cool. We're still in the Easter basket phase.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you do the plastic eggs, or was it the hard boiled eggs?
You know what? We would always do the Easter egg hunt at church.
Okay.
So the kids would do the Easter egg hunt at church, like in their little Sunday school class. And then when they came home, what we would do is my ex-wife and I would do 10 cards. And it was like when they woke up, they would come in and like on the kitchen table would be a card. And it would say like, it'd rhyme. I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but it'd be like, you wouldn't want this to wash your toes, but this is where you could wash your clothes. And so the girls would be like, the washer. Then they'd run down to the washer, find another card, and it would tell them to go to another place,
cool.
another place. And then the 10th one would lead them back to, it was normally like their bed. So while they were like, they didn't know, while they were like running into the backyard to find something, we would put the Easter basket on their bed.
Oh, cool.
And then they would be like, wait a second, when I woke up, this wasn't here, and they were like absolutely flabbergasted by like, how did this get here? So we did that. So they would get their Easter basket, and it would, be a big old basket sitting on their bed. So that's how we did our kids growing up. This year, unfortunately, since I'm divorced now, the kids will be with their mom in Florida. They always go to Florida every year. And then, and I think I asked them, I'm like, do you want money for, do you want an Easter basket from me, or do you just want money for spending down in Florida? And they were like, yeah, we'll just take spending money.
There you go.
So, I don't even think they're getting like Easter baskets and stuff. They just want more money for Florida.
We'll probably dye eggs because Jesus dyed eggs for your sins.
Right.
So
right, exactly.
We'll do all that good stuff and go to church so many times.
Yeah, what people don't realize is the Last Supper was actually, they were all dyeing Easter eggs.
They were dyeing eggs. It was like vinegar, a bottle of vinegar.
Yeah. Like they didn't sit there and eat the whole time. Who does that? Like when you have a party, people come over your house to do something and then you eat. The Last Supper, this must be how, I'm guessing this is how dyeing eggs is associated with
Jesus dyed
dying
eggs
on
for
the
your
cross.
sins, yes.
Yeah, so I'm guessing him and all his disciples showed up to dye eggs, and then during that they were like, oh, the food's being served, hey, you will eat this of me and drink this of me, and all
Jesus,
that.
I made 2 colors, I double dipped.
Right, exactly.
And if
I mix them all together, I can make brown.
If this is offending you, keep listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we get into today's topic, you had just showed me something really cool, and I'm hoping you can tell everyone else what it is.
Yeah, I'm a wine guy. I do enjoy wine. You could give me a $9 bottle of wine, or you could give me a $900 bottle of wine. I won't be able to tell the difference. I'm not like that. But a cool thing that I just learned about, some of you may already know, but if you're a wine person out there and you enjoy it, or you just want to see something cool and you're at the grocery store, there is an app that you can get for your phone, and it's called Living Wine. Okay, it has nothing to do with Scripture. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It's just called Living Wine, and there's a bunch of wine companies that are a part of this, and one is a wine company called 19 Crimes. Now, if you enjoy wine, you've probably seen this. If you don't drink wine, you may have seen these bottles. And so it's a normal, a very cheaply priced wine, and their packaging is really eye-catching. It's got like black and white like mug shots of like old, it looks like old criminals and stuff like that. And so when you buy these 19 Crimes or you see them in the store, you download this app and you turn the app on, and it's basically like your filming, it's like your video camera on your phone, and you point it at the bottle, at the label, and the person who's on the label like comes to life, and they tell you who they are, why their picture is on the bottle, and like kind of what they did. And so it's really cool. Like my girlfriend showed me this week, and then I was at the store and they had a huge end cap of all the 19 Crimes wines. And I was there with my kids, and I was like, hey, girls, you want to see something cool? So it's like me and my kids. How good of a parent am I? It's me and my kids standing in front of this giant rack of wine, and they have maybe 8 different wines. And we were just, putting the camera in each of them. And people are walking by like, what is that? What are you doing? And so, a couple people were like peering over my shoulder and was kind of like, oh, that's awesome. But yeah, it's real neat. If you don't want to download the app and you don't care about wine, you just want to know what I'm talking about, you can go to YouTube. Because Chris, I tried to explain it to you, and I thought I had a bottle here, and I don't. So you just went to YouTube and pulled one up where it kind of showed how it works. But it's pretty cool. It's a neat little thing that they got. And there's a few different wines. There's another wine called The Walking Dead. And so it's like zombies and stuff. I haven't seen that wine. I haven't seen how that works. But I think there's about 4 or 5 wine companies that use this app, and it's just something cool. I mean, we all go to grocery stores where there's a huge wine area, and it's just kind of cool to pick up your phone and see.
It's really cool, and I can't believe more companies haven't picked up on doing something like that.
Right, like a company like Coke or a cereal company. Like you have, your cereal box, you have Toucan Sam, and you hold your phone up to it, and Toucan Sam flies around and does, I'm surprised they don't have this either.
Or even I don't think anyone buys CDs anymore, but if you went into I don't think anyone goes to Best Buy anymore, but if you did go into a Best Buy and there was a CD there and you shine it at like the album cover, and they've made it so the band kind of comes alive and plays a song.
Yeah.
Like that would be a great marketing gimmick.
Just like you said, albums are making a comeback.
Yeah.
So if you have a big old vinyl album, point your phone at it and have that come alive. I mean, my mind was completely, blown seeing this thing on the 19 Crimes. I was like, oh my gosh, that is awesome. So now I want to see that used more often.
Or like if you go to a movie theater and you point it at the poster. Like the poster. I can't believe they haven't gotten into that yet. Like
that would be awesome.
Yeah, you get a trailer for the movie right there, or something special where I don't know, Thor swings his hammer down or something like that. That would be
That's
cool.
a fantastic idea, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I should go into movie marketing.
Absolutely, you should.
It's really cool. Like I think that's the same technology that does like Pokemon Go. That's for me. It's okay.
Yeah, I forgot to put my phone on silent there.
But I think it's like the same Pokemon Go type technology. It's AR, augmented reality.
Okay.
What's really crazy is we saw this thing I was taking a class on new media, and we learned about this thing called Magic Leap, which kind of takes that idea of you point how you point your phone at something on Pokemon and you can look at it on your phone and you see the Pokemon there.
Yeah.
Well, imagine you could put on glasses, like special glasses, and the Pokemon or whatever was just right in front of you, like in 3D on your table, and you could walk around it. There's this company that's doing that, and I have to think that's going to revolutionize gaming once that gets big, because they're already talking about you could put that on and be in the middle of like a first-person shooter game in your hallway at work. Which I'm sure will do wonders for productivity. But like business meetings, you could just pull up a chart. They're thinking people don't need computers with this; they just have a keyboard, and then the monitor shows up on the screen. So there's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
One day you could be listening to this podcast and our faces could just pop up on your
That's
coffee
terrifying.
table and we could talk to you.
That's terrifying.
So I think that'd be great. So speaking of things that offend you, I thought there was a topic I wanted to talk about today that you had talked about on your other podcast very briefly.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about Ricky Gervais, the comedian, and how, I mean, this might be shocking to people. I don't know. He keeps it secret, so I don't know, like,
right.
if he wants people to know this or if people can pick up on it. But Ricky Gervais is an atheist,
right?
And
I think the same people that didn't pick up on it are probably the same people that didn't pick up that you were just being sarcastic.
Probably. Ricky Gervais very open about atheism, very, and I would go as far as to say he's anti-theist, which is not just I don't believe in God, but you're stupid for believing in God.
Right, absolutely. What's that called?
Anti-theist.
Okay.
So it's not just say atheist, you're anti-theist. And that's like Christopher Hitchens was that way, Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
And that kind of, when I first heard that, like when I first heard Ricky Gervais ever go off on that, I was really bummed because I was a huge fan of The Office and Extras.
Yeah.
And I don't expect that the people who entertain me share my faith, but I was kind of like, oh, well, that sucks.
Right.
You know, we wouldn't be friends.
Right.
Like if I
it's like South Park. You can laugh at South Park making fun of everything until it's something that deals with you, and then you're like, wait a second, ouch.
Yeah. But you were also talking about the movie he did, The Invention of Lying.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't seen it, and honestly, from what I remember, no one saw it.
Right.
That movie was responsible for the first fight my wife and I ever had.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, it came out in 2009, in fall of 2009, so my wife and I would have been dating about 3 months at that point, and I had to go review it for the paper. And for those of you who don't know what the movie's about, it's about a world where no one has ever told a lie. So, everything they tell is the truth, even if it's embarrassing, even if it's offensive.
Not only have they never told a lie, like, the word lie doesn't even exist
they
because
can't comprehend.
it's never happened.
Exactly. Yeah, they can't comprehend it. And so one day, Ricky Gervais, his character, stumbles on the fact that he says something that isn't true, and of course, people just buy it because they don't know about lying. And it's a very funny movie in some parts. I think the script is very smart.
I think the first half of the movie is
totally
hysterical. Like, it's great.
Totally agree. And then it follows it to this conclusion where basically he figures out to get people to follow him and so he can have power, he invents this lie about a man who lives in the sky, who makes everything right, and he uses it as a way to comfort his friend when his friend's mom dies. And it's basically Ricky Gervais saying religion's a lie. And it's this big budget comedy.
Yeah.
And it has some very funny people in there. I think Louis C.K.'s in there, which I don't know if we're allowed to like him. But I think he's in there. There's Jennifer Garner's in there. And I gave the movie a very good review when I saw it. Because I was judging it as a movie. And I don't always expect that I'm going to agree with a movie. Mm-hmm. But I gave it a good review. I said it's a very funny movie. It's very smartly written. Ricky Gervais is a very funny guy. I think it was like his second movie that he had done. He had done some stupid romantic comedy before that. I'm like, this is kind of more in line with what you'd expect from him. Well, my wife, she asked me if I had seen this movie because she had read an article about it. And she's like, this is the most offensive thing I've ever heard. He's basically calling our religion a lie. I'm like, yeah, I saw the movie. I gave it an A. And I thought we were going to break up because, like, honestly, I'm sticking to my guns stupidly and saying, no, I saw this movie and, yeah, I don't agree with it, but I thought it was very funny. I thought it was funny. She's like, but it's a lie. It's going against everything we hold dear. And kind of in hindsight, I've kind of changed my view on that movie where I'm like, yeah, I feel like he's picking a fight with that movie. And it kind of offends me what he's saying. I don't care if he makes fun of faith. So I want to talk a little bit, maybe even start that movie as a talking point. How do you deal with movies and TV shows and books or anything that deal with, that are critical of Christianity, are maybe heretical in some way? And I think that's a good movie to start with since we've both seen it.
I mean, right off the rip, my first answer to that is if you're so fragile, I kind of screwed that word up. If you're so fragile in your faith that somebody making a movie or going counter to what you believe shakes you and gets it to where like you're fuming about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would have to question how deep your roots go to begin with.
Totally agree.
You know what I mean? It's like a mosquito hitting a windshield. Like in my everyday, when I hear people dog Christianity or I dog Christians or faith or anything like that, to me it's a mosquito on the windshield. Sometimes that mosquito, it's so small you never feel it. It hits, but sometimes it like dries right away, and it's kind of annoying that it takes you a few times to get rid of it. And so it's there. In the summer, you drive around with this one dead mosquito on your windshield for a few days before you can clean it off. So you kind of think about it, but it's not enough to do anything in your life. And that's what I think. Like my faith, I know I live in a sinful world, and the Lord has given me a tool belt to be able to walk through this hell on earth. And he's given me the tools, whether I use them or not. He's given me the tools to walk through this crappy world and to hopefully try and improve it a little bit and to bring a little something to it and to shine a little light in it. So when it comes to a movie like this, it bums me out that a comedian that still to this day, even with the stuff that he says about Christianity, if you ask me, you can have a dinner and who's 4 people that you're inviting to that dinner, Ricky Gervais is one of them. Because I think his comedy is what I love. He has that.
Funny.
Yeah, he's absolutely hysterical. He has that visual comedy of like when he plays David Brent in the British Office, like that character. It's so uncomfortable. He doesn't even have to talk. The way his body moves, the sleight of eyes, the shifting of his eyes, things like that. Absolute comedy, absolute hysterical. His podcasts that eventually became audiobooks on like iTunes and stuff. You're driving and you got to pull over because you're laughing so hard at the stuff that they're talking about. So I think he's hysterical in that sense. Again, when it comes to his religion and things like that, or anti-religion, that's where like just like anything in life that lets you down. I mean, it just shows that like this guy's human. This is his issue. And I'd love to be able to sit down and talk with him. I mean, I don't think Joe Yerke would change his thoughts on things. But it'd be nice. I mean, it's one of those things that like, you want to pray every night that someone in his life, can make it where, or he has something happen in his life where he just thinks like, wow, maybe there is something to this. Maybe him getting older. Maybe the fact that he has all the money in the world and he realizes it can't buy happiness. It can't do these things. Maybe he's going to have a family member that gets sick and that family member will, know the Lord or whatever. I don't know. But I just wish he's one of those guys that I wish that would happen. So you could start to see it change. But again, I forget what question you asked.
Yeah, well, I think you hit it. But I also think like people turning on him and being like, avoid him. He's horrible. He's going to hell. Leave him alone. That kind of reinforces what he's saying about Christians in many ways. But I mean, first off, I think you're right. If my faith was threatened because I saw a movie that picked apart my faith, I don't have a strong faith at that point. Like my faith, if it can be picked apart by a movie, that's stupid. Now I can get offended by it. I have absolutely every right to get offended by it. I mean, that's fine. And there are a lot of comedians. And if I stop listening to every comedian who's an atheist, I'm going to be listening to Mark Lowry, and that's it. Patton Oswalt. I love Patton Oswalt. I think he is so funny. He's a huge atheist. He's always talking about that. He doesn't offend me in that because I don't think he's anti-theist in the same way. But I'm not, I don't get offended by his stuff. I take offense with what Ricky Gervais says in his movie. Doesn't mean I'm going to go totally give up on Ricky Gervais. But it does mean I'm going to look at that movie and say, yeah, okay, funny or no, what you're saying cuts to the core of what I believe that I've built my life upon. So I really don't appreciate that. But I'm still going to, at the end of the day, judge it as a movie because it's not meant to be a piece of theology. And it goes the other way, like Bill Maher. Also an atheist. Didn't know if you knew that.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, he did a whole movie called Religulous. And I got mad at that movie, not because it was anti-religion. It was a bad movie. and I judged it as a movie. It was
Right.
just a stupid movie where I thought he pulled his punches. I think I lost my train of thought there, but
Well, like, when it goes back to it, I think in show notes earlier in the week when you were like, hey, here's a topic, and a really cool, like, the way you worded it that was really cool is, you know, what's the difference between bashing the faith and bashing Christians? And I think when people bash the faith, to me, it's just uneducated. Like, to me, it's just uneducated. And I think we talked about this on one of our very first podcasts that we did together, you know, and this topic kind of came up. Like, to me, I think it was when we talked about like creationism or evolution, stuff like that. There's oftentimes my job being a police officer makes me question a lot of things. But when I question things, and I question things in my faith, my divorce questioned my faith. Lots of things question my faith. But my faith is so amazing, and Christ is so amazing that through that questioning, you're reassured.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to people bashing the faith, I listen to like Ricky Gervais like bash on Noah's Ark. And I think to myself, yeah, it is crazy. Like, the whole idea of Noah's Ark is bizarre. The whole story of Jonah and the whale is bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to explain it, but all I know is that I believe every word in the Bible. I believe every word. I don't pick and choose. I believe every word. And if it's in there, I'm going to believe that God breathed that into the Bible for a reason. So you listen to Ricky Gervais talk about how crazy it is, but then you watch a movie like Evan Almighty, and you say, yeah, this is absolutely bizarre. If that happened nowadays, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know if the guy was a wacko or what. But you look at that and it solidifies. Like, to me, he can raise all these questions. And if I'm all pissed off thinking about the movie about lying, the invention of lying, and I'm pissed off, for whatever reason, I'm pissed off as you're thinking about the hurtful things that he said. And I know I sound like a, snowflake when I say, oh, it's hurtful, but like when I think of those things that like cuts to my quick, I'm like, ouch, like I don't like that he said that. It makes you think about that. And right away, your brain and the roots and what you know come to the defense. And it starts to sharpen your sword again when it comes to a situation or a topic like that. And you start to realize, no, he's making fun of this, but he doesn't get this, and he didn't bring this into it or that into it. Now, when you bash Christians, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Because to me, and I think you're the same way, when your Christianity, like when Christians are being bashed as opposed to the faith, to me, it's like your dashboard in your car. If something's being lit up, it's because there's a problem.
Yeah.
Like the engine is telling you there's an issue here. And so I think when the public and people bring up like, hey, with Christians, this is an issue or that's an issue. Yeah, we need to step back and look at it. When it comes to homophobia and stuff like that, we need to sit back and take a look at it and say, this isn't something like mohawks that's going to go out of style. Like, I can't look and say like, homosexuality is like a nose piercing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want my kid to get it. And eventually it just goes away. Your child grows up and it moves on. It's not a phase. And from what I see, homosexuality is here to stay, and people don't pick and choose it. But that's where it ends with me. I don't understand it. I don't understand everything that goes on in our bodies. I know what I believe in the Bible, and I know what it says. But the other thing I also believe is I'm not going to sit there and carry that person's cross. My cross is not homosexuality to bear. But my cross is to my friends that are gay and lesbian, to love them and to shine a light and to let them know that they're loved, and that if I have $1 in my wallet and they need it, it's theirs. And I am there for them. If they're hurt, I'm making them meals. If they adopt a child, you know what I mean? Like, I'm there to support and help raise that child, because we all know it takes a village. So even in that sense, I am there for that child to say, hey, here I am, and this is what I believe, and this is all those things. So to me, like when people bring out stuff against Christians in the media or every day or in music or entertainment, that's how I look at it. It's a light on a dashboard that as you're just driving through life, sometimes you can get pretty complacent. And boop, this light comes on and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, like something's being pointed at me. I need to figure out the root of that. And I need to get that light, to make sure that thing comes off. I need to get the problem fixed, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
No, I think that's great. That makes a lot of sense because it kind of gets what I was thinking about. It is funny though. I'm just picking up on this. We're talking about comedies for the most part. Whenever something is offensive, it's usually a comedy. And what occurs to me is like comedy exists to show you maybe something that's wrong or needs to be fixed. It's poking fun at that, and comedy offends the most because I think it can do that with like the sharpest knife.
Absolutely.
So I think it comes down to what's your target. If someone's making fun of Jesus, I got a big problem with that because my job is, as a Christian, I'm supposed to live to glorify him, and I believe he's the most precious person who ever lived. So yeah, if someone wants to take on Jesus, I'm not gonna, they have that right, but I have the right not to watch that and be offended. But I think you're absolutely right. Christians are fair game.
Yeah.
I remember, have you ever seen Monty Python's Life of Brian?
I have not.
I might have asked you this before.
You asked me, and I want to see it, but I have not seen it.
Okay, I will bring that for you next time.
Oh, perfect.
It is a great movie. It is so funny. But it is, Monty Python started out wanting to make a movie about the life of Christ. And it's a comedy. And then they stopped and like, Jesus isn't really funny. The stuff he's saying is good stuff. We can't really make fun of that. What we can make fun of are all these people who follow him, who get in all these little silly squabbles over stupid, translations or traditions. So let's point the spotlight at that. That makes it one of my favorite movies. I love Life of Brian. Because having grown up in the church, Christians are crazy. Like they're silly. That's kind of why this podcast exists in many ways, is a lot of it is us poking fun at where we've grown up and where we've been entrenched. I think one of the best characters on TV is Ned Flanders. They never make fun of what Ned believes. They make fun of him of how he believes it.
The delivery.
Yeah.
Hi diddly do.
Yeah. He's weird. He's kind of, they make fun of him because he's strange. Well, we have a band that sang Jesus Freak. Right. We are told in the Bible, people are going to think we're weird. And we're going to, if we believe we're sinners, we're going to believe we do it wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you're talking about the dashboard. Like, there's something, if people are making fun of us or people are angry about something Christians are doing, that's not our time to get defensive, but to pay attention.
Right.
And I totally agree with that. Have you ever seen the movie Saved?
Yes.
That was the one that was going through my mind when you said that. It's about this Christian school, but it also ties in ideas of homophobia and acceptance and forgiveness. I really liked that movie. It's a very funny movie. And I feel it kind of pokes the finger at how self-righteous we can get.
Yeah.
And how unloving we can be. And I think those are things where we need to have a bit thicker skin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And say, hey, yeah, and maybe Christian artists need to be, like Christian filmmakers, need to be making films that poke fun at Christians.
Right. I mean, I know this is a stretch, but the movie Dogma.
I was going to talk about Dogma.
Made by Kevin Smith.
Yep.
Kevin Smith, I have read articles that say Kevin Smith is a Catholic.
Yep, devout Catholic.
Exactly. So he goes and he makes this movie, and I love the movie. And what's crazy is there's parts of the movie that when I used to be a youth pastor, I pulled the parts of the movie out. Now, mind you, I had to bleep out all the swear words. But there's some powerful scenes in that movie that really reinforce my faith. And the one that stands out the most to me right now is there's a scene where Ben Affleck and Matt Damon that play the two, fallen angels are in a parking garage. Yes,
I was just thinking about this the other day.
And so Ben Affleck is starting to go, crazy with this like revenge and wanting to get back at God, and Matt Damon's character is like, listen to yourself. Who do you sound like? You sound like the morning star. You sound like Lucifer. In fact, I'm getting goosebumps right now. Like
That's a good scene.
My legs are goosebumped up. You know, when he gives that thing and he's like, listen to yourself. You sound like Lucifer before the fall. Mm-hmm. And we all know what happened to him. And Matt Damon was willing to follow Ben Affleck as these two, you know, what was it, Loki and Bartleby. And so he was willing to follow him, like, through all these antics, through all this stuff of trying to backdoor their way back into heaven. And Matt Damon's character was realizing, like, dude, you're starting to sound like the devil, that you want all this credit. And this might be where I stop, because I do want to get back into heaven. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to wage war against God, we all know how that ends.
Well, even that, also in that scene, that's where Ben Affleck's character is saying why he's so mad anyway. And there's a moment where he's basically saying, you know, God made angels and they are in service to him. That's their job. They don't have a choice. And he gave humans all these choices, all this freedom, and they still deny his existence. And
yes.
That is deep stuff for a comedy.
Absolutely.
For a comedy about poop monsters.
Right.
Like,
right.
And that's why I used to be very closed off to anything that was kind of theologically controversial or R-rated. Like back in my 20s, I remember when Dogma came out, I was like, I don't think I could see that movie. That's not a good movie.
Yeah, my mom was like, I wish you wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
I have, like, the collector's DVD. I love that movie.
Yeah. And the thing is, let's say you made a movie, you wanted to make a movie about those topics. And who is going to show up to see a drama about angels and theology and doctrine? No one's going to show up for that.
Right.
You make a movie that's a comedy that is probably irreverent, has some sex jokes and language in it, a poop monster, some action. That gets more people in. It makes it more accessible. And I think once you start laughing, your defenses go down.
Yeah.
And that's where it can start speaking to you. I don't think it's for everyone. If someone's offended by Dogma, they can be offended by Dogma. I get it.
The offense of Dogma lasted about a week.
Mm-hmm.
The offense of the Da Vinci Code was a good solid 6 months.
The Da Vinci Code is also a terrible movie. But,
even
and a terrible book.
But, like, even the book and, like, oh my gosh, the brouhaha that started. And again, that attacked the faith. That didn't attack Christians. Mm-hmm. And so people were just, gnashing of teeth and, pulling out their hair and shaving their heads. And, like, again, if a book...
Yeah.
Like, dude, we don't live in the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. We live in a sinful world. And each and every day we fall in and out of that sin. And we as Christians, the only thing that separates us from non-believers is the fact that we realize when we screw up and we ask for forgiveness. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, we ask for forgiveness because we know that we've fallen short of the bar that has been set for us and that hopefully we want to live up to. And we've fallen short of that, and we pray for forgiveness. That's the only thing that separates us from non-Christians. Mm-hmm. We get horny. We get angry. Mm-hmm. We get sad. We get all these things that everyone else goes through. Other people deal with emotions different ways. Christians, run to the Bible. We run to support. We run to that hope. We run to that security that we know that we have in Christ. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing that separates us. So, again, back to it. I don't know what I was getting back to. I don't know. But, like, the Da Vinci Code, again, that's one that attacks the faith. And people didn't know what to do. When it's a comedy, that joke wasn't funny. And then it wears off after a while.
Yeah.
Like when the laughter stops and it goes to the next joke, you've forgotten about it.
Absolutely.
But the Da Vinci Code, oh, dear Lord.
And here's the other thing. If you do hands off, you lose so many opportunities to talk to people about it. Mm. Like, I remember when the Da Vinci Code came out, and then there was another movie. It was a fantasy movie, and it was kind of like the anti-Narnia. The Golden Compass.
Golden Compass, yeah.
Those came out when I was working at the paper, and I was working as a film critic. And so I had the opportunity, like, people asking, oh, you're not going to go see the Golden Compass, are you? You're not going to read the Da Vinci Code, are you? I'm like, yeah, I think I am. And I read them, and I saw the movie, and I didn't like either of them. But I had the opportunity to write and engage about them. And so that gets me in a conversation with people who aren't going to be talking about something spiritually on their own. Mm-hmm. Someone could have read the Da Vinci Code and like, hey, what'd you think of that book? Wasn't it silly? And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't really like what they were saying about Jesus. Well, now I have a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Or the Golden Compass. Well, I didn't really like what the subtext was about how they're, setting off to kill God or something like that.
Right.
And that opens that up. I think when you simply say, I'm offended, so I'm not going to deal with it, which is you're right. And again, all things are lawful, and we all have liberty, and we probably misuse our liberty or, cling too tightly to legalism. But I think when you give up a lot of those opportunities to engage with something, you lose conversation. That could be really fruitful. Do you watch, I think we've talked about this off air, but you've only seen like 1 or 2 episodes of Crashing, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. One of my favorite shows right now. It is very closely based to the real story of comedian Pete Holmes. He was a really strong evangelical, and he was actually going to be a youth pastor, and he decided he wanted to try comedy. His life fell apart. And so the show charts him as he's kind of navigating the mess of his life and trying to build this stand-up career while wrestling with, well, where is my faith? What do I believe? And what about this world that's been hands-off? What can I engage with? What can I do? What can I not do? And who should I talk to? And so he's having theological conversations with Artie Lang,
right?
And starting to wrestle with his faith.
And what's the other guy from Emoji?
TJ Miller.
TJ, yeah. I was going to say JT.
Or like this season even, he's talking about faith with Penn Jillette, who's a noted atheist. And they're having one of the most theological conversations I've seen. And I don't think Pete Holmes believes in the same way he believed years ago. I listen to his podcast every once in a while, and I think he's kind of like a Rob Bellish, a little bit more liberal in his faith. But he's still having these conversations. And to me, that's amazing that a show can deal with this and say, guess what? If you're a Christian, you can engage with the world, and they're not going to kill you. They're not going to argue with you. You could build friendships with them, and you might learn something, and they might learn something.
Right.
Yeah. I really, like, that's a big thing with me, is if you do totally hands-off. Now, set rules for your kids, sure.
Yeah.
And set boundaries for yourself. I'm not saying...
And we can, and the other thing is, we can always look back and laugh. Like, as anything, like, think about your normal life and the clothes that you used to wear and everything like that. We can laugh because we're older and we can look back at the foolishness of our youth. It's the same thing with our walk with Christianity. Like, things that we can look back and kind of poke fun of, and I know there's lots of podcasts that do, and that's their focus, and television shows and books or whatever, where you go back and you look at something, you're like, isn't that corny now? Like, to look back, isn't that corny? But at that time, that was like a buildup. Like, for me, one of the things that I look back on as corny is what I call track attacking. And so when I was in 6th grade, 7th grade, our youth group would go track attacking.
Oh, I think I know where this is going.
And, so we'd go downtown Royal Oak, and we put tracks on all the cars, on windshields. And so, I can look back now and be like, that was dumb. We weren't engaging people. We were leaving this piece of paper that most people crumpled up, or you got angry. Like, why are people doing this, And then it became litter. So I can look back and laugh about it and see that, it probably didn't do much good. But at the time, being a 13-year-old kid, a 12-year-old kid, that was a step in my faith of, going out and going downtown, and you're engaging people and you're handing somebody a track. And that step of faith led me to my next step of faith, which led me to my next. And I remember I begged my mom to get me a t-shirt that said, it was like the Pepsi logo, but instead of saying Pepsi, it said Jesus. Wearing that was a huge, I remember the day when I got that, and I knew I was wearing it that next day to school. I think I even got it on a Friday. And I was like, I have to wait till Monday to wear this shirt. And I was sweating wearing this thing. But that was a mission for me. Joe Yerke, age 14, being a freshman in high school, wearing that was my way of saying, look at me, I am a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm doing, and this is what I believe. And so a lot of times me and my friends look back and we joke about all the shirts. You know, I think me and you have even done it.
Oh, yeah, I had a Lord's Gym shirt.
Yeah, the Lord's Gym. Or I remember when Austin Powers, The Spy That Shagged Me, came out, they had a shirt that looked exactly like the movie poster, and it said, Jesus Christ, the Lord that saved me. You know, so we can look back and like joke about it, but I don't knock that as like stupid. You know what I mean? Like if my girls, if they're like, Dad, I think I want to go out and do a track attack, you know, or like their youth group was like, we're going to track attack. I wouldn't be like, don't do that. That's a waste of time. Like, no, that might be a step of growth that we now as Christians can look back on the corny Christian stuff that we did.
You're building muscles. You're building spiritual muscles.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think conversely, the same thing's true. If something does offend you now and you feel, you know, your faith is going to be compromised by watching something, or your conscience is going to be troubled, by all means, don't do it. You might not be ready for something.
Yeah.
But that also means be open to listening to your, you know, the Spirit when it's time, when it's prompting you to say, hey, maybe give this a shot. One of the first memories I have regarding talking about movies, anything other than that was awesome, was I was 9 years old, and I'm sitting at home, and my mom comes in, like, panicked. And I'm like, she sits down, and she's holding the mail in her hand. I'm like, what's going on, Mom? She's like, well, I just got this thing from church, and there's this movie coming out, The Last Temptation of Christ. And I want you to promise me, this says bad things about Jesus. I want you to promise me you're never going to see this movie. Do not go see this movie. I'm 10. Like, the last thing I am thinking in my head is, man, I think Martin Scorsese has a movie out about the dual nature of Christ, and I really want to see it. But I'm just like, I won't go see it. I won't go see that movie, Mom. And that movie stuck in my head as like, hands off, don't see this movie. Until I was in my mid-20s. And then a friend and I decided, hey, let's rent it. Let's rent The Last Temptation of Christ. Have you ever seen it?
No.
Okay. It's not a movie that I think is biblically accurate all the time. It is basically about how Christ wrestled with being fully God and fully man. And it errs on the man side. So there are things I don't agree with it. Like Jesus appears to be struggling with lust in some things, and appears to feel guilty about things, which I don't believe he felt guilty at all. I believe he struggled and was tempted. And it's a hard movie. There's a lot I like about it. There's a lot I don't. But I remember the first few times I saw it, I turned it off after 15 minutes. It took me 3 tries. So I'm like, I can't watch this. This is a Jesus that I don't recognize. I don't understand. And then I finally, like 5 years later, probably right before I turned 30, I watched it the whole way through. And that movie changed my life. Like, I still don't, like, it's a movie that I have very complex feelings with. Like, there are some things in it where I'm like, yeah, I think that's a totally wrong depiction of Jesus. I think you're going about it in a way that's very reverent, and that tells me you take this seriously, but I don't think this is what Jesus was like. But then there are other things where it's like, this is a Jesus who laughs and loves people, and who like the most controversial thing is, as he's dying on the cross, Satan comes and tempts him and gives him a vision of, hey, come on down from the cross, live a normal life, look what you would have. And Jesus is imagining this life where he would come down and get married to Mary Magdalene. There's a brief scene where he's sleeping with her. And then, you know, at the end of and he sees what the fallout of that would be. And at the very end of the movie, he decides, no, I'm going on the cross. And people just lost their crap over that movie when it came out. And I had a hard time with that movie for so long. And then when I watched it, I was like, okay, I'm in a place where I can recognize what's right and wrong in that. But man, the things that are right in that movie have given me a new insight into who Christ was. Yeah. And I am so thankful for that, even with all the trouble. Right. So it's sometimes worth engaging. But you got to listen to your conscience.
Yeah.
So.
No, for sure. Absolutely.
So. But you can also go rent Dogma, too.
You can rent Dogma. You can rent Da Vinci Code. And you can rent Left Behind with Nicolas Cage.
Don't rent Nicolas. Oh, that's the other thing. No, that's the other thing is people get all up in arms over bad movies that attack Christians. I'm also up in arms over bad movies that are pro-Christian. So, like, I think next week as this releases, or no, the day this releases, God's Not Dead 3 is coming out.
Ooh.
And I'm afraid I have to go see it because I'm afraid I have to write about it.
Oh, boy.
But, so we'll see. That's a subject for another day. So, listen, we'll end it there.
All right.
You have a good Easter.
Hey, you too.
And where can people find you?
You can find me, man, if you're on Xbox, you can find me at Joe Insider on Xbox One. You can find me at calcagnoradio.com, and that podcast, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram. I think that's about it.
Okay. I'm on Twitter, Mere Chris-ianity. You can find me on Pathos, the Mere Chris-ianity blog. It's where you can also find extended show notes of this show as well as episodes. So we will see you next week.
Cool. See ya.
Yeah.